Hi there, I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I'm a chiropractor by training, but found my passion empowering parents to teach their little ones to sleep and parent confidently day and night as a sleep and parenting consultant. And today we are talking about baby sleep and tears. Can you have one without the other? And why there's almost always some tears if you're trying to do sleep teaching, even if you're trying to be as gentle as possible. So let's talk about crying today. Ugh, yucks, right? No one wants to talk about this. No one wants to do it. But I think it's important to talk about it so we understand why this is happening to you and what you can do about it. So let's talk about tears in the newborn stage. And when I say newborn, let's refer to the 0 to 3 month category. So crying happens at this stage because of primitive needs: hunger, cold, wet diaper, being uncomfortable, having gas, the need to burp, and I'm tired, right? In the newborn stage, these cries and the sounds that go with them are based on primitive reflexes. And if you have a newborn in this age, definitely go check out the Dunstan Baby Language. This is an Australian opera singer who found that different cries have different meaning, and her teachings were instrumental in us getting over our bad newborn sleep stretch as we really figured out what the root need of the tears are. Because in the newborn stage, what's your main goals? 1, keeping your baby well rested. 2, using methods that you can maintain. And 3, being a really good detective so that you can meet your child's root need rather than band-aiding it. So dunstanbaby.com. Definitely want to go check that out. Now, as babies pass into the 3rd month or the 4th month, as they get older, the crying often happens for other reasons too. And those reasons are preference and opinions, right? Preference and opinions. The challenge as a parent can be deciphering, the difference between the primitive needs and those opinions and preferences. For example, you might notice that your 3-month-old who used to transfer well from falling asleep in arms and being put down into the crib suddenly now starts to cry upon put down. Why is that? Well, previously your 3-month-old was in deep sleep stages, so she wasn't really aware of what was going on around her and could transfer easily. Now, as she's getting older, she's getting more light sleep as part of her sleep cycles, and her caveman brain is watching out for her, trying to keep her safe from life, essentially. Or there's saber-toothed tigers that are out there, right? And so when she senses that she's being put down, her caveman brain says, danger, danger, danger. And your child says, oh, no, I don't want to sleep here. I like it at arms where it's warm and cuddly, and I feel that much more safe. And she cries. And those tears are related to more preference and opinion rather than those primitive needs of I'm hungry, I'm cold, I'm tired. Okay. Now, my story, if you've been following me at all, is I never ever wanted to hear my son cry, right? I come from an attachment parenting background. No tears, baby wearing, feeding on demand, that was all my jam. But it just didn't really work out for us because I was waking up every 2 hours for months on end to feed him back to sleep. And that was my story of how I basically muffled his tears. I never wanted to hear him cry. So anytime he fussed, I assumed it was hunger, or I nursed him to help make him more comfortable. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's lots of people that nurse to sleep all the time out there, but it didn't work for me because what I ended up doing, right, is I ended up inadvertently muting the tears. Because let's be real. There is like an instinct, a mother's instinct to do whatever it takes to stop those tears because they're so uncomfortable. The thing is, if you can take a deep breath when you hear the cries and try and observe your child and meet the needs, figure out what that need is. And again, that's where that Dunstan Baby Language can be really helpful for you. You will be that much more in tune with your child. You will meet the root need, which will then save you hours of tears long-term. Okay. So I remember being at a home visit with a mama with a newborn who was around 7 weeks, and she gave that kiddo a full feed. She drained one side, took half the other side, and she put her down. And baby started to fuss a little bit. She said, oh, she must still be hungry. And she picked her up and she put her to the breast, and baby fell asleep. Okay. So there was an assumption there that she didn't eat enough, which is very, very common too, because as a mom, like even as your kids get into the toddler years, you're like, did they eat enough? I'm not really sure. It's very, very common feeling, right? And not that there's anything wrong with that, right? I'm just here trying to educate you on patterns that I see in life in case they can help you. And this is a very common pattern. I'm insecure that my child's not eating enough, or I'm in the snacking cycle and they eat so often, I'm never really confident they got a full feed. And so I keep offering it. And what I end up doing is I mute that root need. So that little girl who had that full feed and put down and fussed, she probably needed to burp. And then when she was brought to the breast again, she felt a little bit better and she was kind of lulled into sleep because she was tired and she was at the breast, essentially. That happens over and over again. That's mistaking the root need for hunger rather than something else. And what you end up doing is creating this position where you are positioning the boob as a soother, a Band-Aid for a catch-all for everything. And that's what happened to me. I remember my son woke up every couple hours of the night. I just kept going in and feeding him back to sleep because I didn't really know what else to do. I didn't know about the Dunstan baby language at that age. And I was so uncomfortable with the tears that I just did everything I possibly could to stop them. When my second came around, I was that much more confident, right? And I'd seen what is possible for my son, what he was actually capable of. Our babies are capable, right? As one of my colleagues at Stanford Sleep Doc said to me, is we don't sleep train babies. We actually sleep train parents, which there's a lot of truth to that, right? It's our reactions of what we do help shape our child's behaviors. Back to baby tears though. Baby cries definitely change as they age. So 4 months, you can often hit that 4-month sleep regression. They start to sound a little bit different. Again, around 7 or 8 months, your child become that much more aware of their surroundings. I often have parents who were nursing to sleep, no problem, everything was going great. They felt really good about their sleep. And then it's almost like their child woke up to the world and what they were doing started wearing off. And then around 12 months, definitely you start getting the mama, dada, and they can become incredibly angry. Right? And these tears are not reflective of primitive needs, but opinions, wants, and desires, which is in keeping with what toddlers are supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be testing the world, seeing what comes back to them, figuring out what is safe and what is not, okay? Sleep is a learned behavior. Think about that. Think about yourself, okay? You climb into bed, you find your favorite position, and you can turn off your brain and relax yourself into sleep, okay? If I said to you tonight, you can't sleep in your favorite position, and I'm going to take away your pillow. Ooh, that would be uncomfortable for you tonight, right? You would toss and turn, be frustrating, but eventually you would learn a new way to fall asleep. And this is why newborns can't do this yet. They don't have self-soothing skills, but research shows that 3 and 4 month olds and older can do this because sleep is a learned behavior. So you learn a new way of falling asleep, right? So think about your little one who, has to have the pacifier reinserted 6 times a night, who maybe is like 8 months, let's say, right? If you take away that pacifier, ooh, your child's going to be very upset because you're changing the way sleep looks to them. And they have to learn something new. And that's very uncomfortable, especially at the end of the day when they're tired, or it's worse at 3 a.m. when they're really tired and your sleep drive is dropping, right? And there will be tears for that. Now, how do you do this as gentle as possible to avoid tears? Your child, depending on your child's age, they're probably always going to protest, right? Because you're making things more challenging for them. You're taking away the known habits that they had for months, sometimes even years. And of course, there's going to be discomfort associated with that because that's what it is when you're trying to learn something new. Now, how much tears and crying there is when you're trying to change behavior is related to a couple things. One, with sleep, it's your ability to set your baby up for success with the timing of sleep. Because if you put your kiddo down too early or too late, that'll be harder for them. There'll be more tears. The second factor is your ability to be consistent and deliver the same message about sleep over and over again. So if sometimes you give them the pacifier, sometimes you rock them, sometimes you give them the breast, sometimes they wake up in the night, you feed them, sometimes they wake up and you don't. You're giving all these different messages about sleep. It's very hard to learn, right? How do you learn? You learn with repetition and consistency. Repetition to the same stimuli, the same response over and over again. And so when you make things different, it's harder to learn, right? And the third thing really is your baby's temperament. Your baby's temperament. Some kids are more flexible than others and adapt to change more easily than others, which is why whatever your neighbor told you that worked for her, that you tried to implement, didn't work for you, right? Could have been a few things there. It could have been timing of sleep as well, but also your child's temperament. In the sleep teaching process, which is 4 months or older, I'm not talking about newborns at this stage. I can give two parents very similar directives, and some may have no tears, but on average, most of them have some tears. And why is that, right? Well, in addition, we found that some babies do well with their parents right beside them, whereas other kids, it drives them crazy to have their parents so close to them but not picking them up. And it actually results in more tears, right? So in summary, I hope that you can understand that sleep is a learned behavior. And after 4 months of age, the amount of tears is going to be dependent on your timing of sleep, making sure you're nailing it for your child based on their age, your ability to be consistent and deliver a same message at naps and nighttime. Often people want to wait and do naps. I have not had good results with that, okay? Because sleep's a learned behavior. So if I'm giving 2 different messages, that makes it more confusing and harder for my child to learn, right? And the third one is your child's temperament. Some kids are more open to change and more flexible than others, okay? Now, are there no-tier options? Because that's what I wanted when I was going through this, okay? I wanted no-tier options. And for some of you, there will be, right? Some of you, you can, stop giving the pacifier and offering touch or shushing instead, and your child will adapt to that, okay? I see these kind of kids every now and again in my practice. I had a 2-year-old that didn't cry the other day. I had a baby with a 5-month-old with terrible reflux too, that we were really worried was going to be really difficult, who slept through the night in 3 nights with very little tears, okay? So we never know what's going to happen. I know in my practice, I can handle whatever happens just because I have so much experience at this stage. But no-tier approaches, if they worked for the average person, then this whole sleep training discussion wouldn't even exist. It wouldn't even exist, okay? Think about that for a second. When you understand that sleep is a learned habit, and when you have the tools to understand if it's truly hunger waking them in the night or preference, then you can be successful in changing behavior by delivering one consistent message about how sleep happens. Okay. None of us want to hear our kiddos cry. God, I know I didn't. It's the worst. Like there really is something instinctual and hormonal in there that makes us want to do whatever we need to stop those tears, right? But people do the sleep teaching. And that's why I did it. That's why my students join Helping Babies Sleep School, because they get to this point where the way they've been doing things just isn't sustainable. And all the no-tier approaches that they've tried just aren't working, right? They're just not working. And they're tired of spending so much time rocking or reinserting the pacifier or breastfeeding to sleep or co-sleeping out of desperation that they just decide, you know what, we're going to have to go for the tier route because these other ways just aren't working for our family. This is a very personal journey that you're on. You got to figure out what works for your family. And there may be others of you that are like, you know what? It's not that bad. I don't mind the 2 wake-ups. I kind of like it in a way. And we're just going to keep doing what we're doing because really overall it's working for us and I really just can't stand the tears. And I completely get that as well. You got to figure out what works best for your family. So I hope this helps you understand sleep's a learned behavior, right? When we make changes, there can be tears. Our ability to deliver the same message, timing of sleep, and your child's temperament are all factors that will impact how much tears there will be. If you like this and you're looking for more information, you can always check out the Helping Babies Sleep Method, my book, on Amazon, or you can take my 6-question simple quiz to figure out what your baby's sleep crutch is, how your timing is working for you, and one simple thing that you can do tonight. And that's at helpingbabiesleep.com/sleep-quiz, and I'll include that in the show notes below. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe to never miss a baby sleep tip.